So you want to be a Bowmaster. So you want to rain arrows down on your enemies, while having a fiery theme. Well, you've come to the right class. In first job, you get Arrow Blow, which is pretty simple. You shoot an arrow, and you can hit up to 4 enemies, dealing 1 line of damage, and yeah, that's about it. It's pretty good for mobbing. It also splits if you're trying to hit multiple enemies that are on different platforms, but that'll be kind of hard to do here. You'll see it when you use it. Double jump. Pretty, self-explanatory. Although, if you jump and then press up twice, you'll do a vertical jump. But if you press it just normally, of course you'll go horizontally. Critical shot, whatever, increases critical rate and mastery, okay. Second job. In second job, you get a much better mobbing skill. It attacks 6 enemies and hits multiple platforms, if the situation is right. It's very nice also because it stuns enemies. Very, very good skill. Pretty much hits 1 enemy and then explodes the rest of them that are around it. Covering fire. I don't really use this skill for anything aside from mobility, but all it does is if you press it, you do like a back hop, which I like to use for bossing. Let's say if something's trying to hit me, I could just jump back. You can also jump forward afterwards, in case you want to reposition that way. But if you hold it down, you shoot out arrows down into the enemies. I never really found a use for this except for that, so anyway. Booster. Soul Arrow. Allows you to gain 30 attack and be able to use skills without having to use arrows. That's about it for that, really. Quiver cartridge. If you... Okay, so I guess I'll explain this first. You get 3 different types of arrows. You get poison arrows, healing arrows or drain arrows, and magic arrows. If you press the key, though... Oh, they're actually called blood, poison, and magic, but whatever, you get the idea. If you press the key, you'll switch between the different quivers. So right now it's only going through poison and magic, because I already used up all of the drain arrows. But if I hadn't, it would also include the drain arrows. The purple ones are the poison, the yellow are magic, and the red ones are the drain arrows. So when you attack with the drain, when you have the drain arrow buff on, you can also see it up here, how many arrows you have left until it switches to the next one. With the drain arrows, you restore 3% HP when you attack, at a 50% chance. With the poison arrow, you inflict 150% damage over 8 seconds and it stacks 3 times. And what it means by stacks is, if I hit these guys 3 times, the poison will then do 3 lines of damage, which is pretty nice. And then magic arrows, there's a 30% chance to send out another arrow to pretty much help your attacks. Oops, you didn't see that attack. But yeah, you'll see like a little arrow shoot out whenever I attack. Or at a 30% chance. The rest are passive. Moving on to third job. Well, first let me use these buffs. Okay. Moving on to third job. You get Arrow Blaster. And Arrow Blaster is like... It's basically a turret. If you hold it down, you get to just fire a turret, which is nice. Of course, if you like I do, of course it's gonna like do what it just did, which is like droop down and not hit in front of you. But if you press the NPC chat, it says spacebar, but if you press the NPC chat button, you can actually place it down as just a turret that fires on its own. And if you're in third job still, you can have 2 of them. Flame Surge is your mobbing skill, basically, for third job. The flames that appear don't actually do anything aside from tell you when the damage over time goes away. So you hit the enemy, and it's a mobbing skill, so of course it's going to hit the enemies around the one that you hit. And then it deals damage over time for, I believe it was 8 seconds? No, 5 seconds. And I believe that's it for that attack. You also get Phoenix. And Phoenix will attack enemies around you and have a 95% chance to stun them. Hookshot, probably my favorite adventurer bowman skill, because it helps with mobility. As you can see, no invincibility. I just run into enemies and take damage. But if I use Hookshot, I pretty much teleport through the enemies, and it gives me invincibility while doing so. So it's great for moving around. Just getting through maps without taking damage. Reckless Hunt Bow. You sacrifice 40% of your defense in order to increase your attack power by 40 and your damage by 40%. And then Mortal Blow is a passive, but I guess I'll explain it anyway. After 9 attacks, you get 80% damage to the next attack that you do. Focused Fury. As you're attacking, your abnormal status will go up, stacks up to 100 times. And once you absorb a status, or once you get hit by a status, it resets down to 0 and has to climb back up to 100 again as you attack. Evasion Boost, there's a 30% chance to dodge an enemy attack, and if you do, then all of your attacks for 1 second will be all critical hits. Fourth job. You get Hurricane. This will be your main bossing skill. It does 1 line of damage, although mine will do 2 because of hypers, and you can move around while using it. So you just hold it down, and then you can move around with it. You can jump. Can't flash jump, of course, but you can move around with it. It's pretty nice. I like it a lot. Binding Shot. I don't like it a lot, but then again, I don't really boss with this class. I think it's more useful during bossing. So it attacks an enemy for, I believe it was 6 lines, and the enemy that was hit gets their HP recovery effect reduced by 60%, which means they, of course, can't heal very well, and their speed is reduced by 30% as well. So I mainly just use it on bosses, so that I slow them down. Arrow Stream. This is your mobbing skill. It's very good. It's tall, does decent damage. I like it a lot. As you can see, I can hit the top platform from here. So yeah. Sharp Eyes. This is a party skill that increases you and your party's crit rate by 20% and the crit damage by 15%. Illusion Step increases your dex by 80 and your avoidability by 30%. Hero's Will, get rid of abnormal status. Maple Warrior, increase your all stats by 15%, pretty much the same for every class. Enchanted Quiver. Now, remember how we had the 3 quivers before? The, poison one, the drain one, and the magic one? This enhances it. And by that, the effects are just they're a lot better. So not only does it passively increase the old effects, but when you have it activated, it also enhances them. So the healing arrow will now heal 5% HP at a 70% chance. The poison arrow will do 220% damage. And the magic arrow will do, at a 60% chance, will do 260% damage. And then of course, the poison and blood arrows, you used to only have 10 of each, but now for the poison and drain, you have 20 arrows, and for the magic arrows, you have 40. So that is really helpful. Actually, let me just read over this real quick to make sure that it's... Oh my god, I totally forgot. Okay, so, you know what? I think that the passive effect is that, the other arrows get enhanced, the other quivers get enhanced. But what happens when you actually use this skill is that, you see how I have the magic arrows? So when I attack, they get used up every time I hit an enemy. But if I want to keep the magic arrows, then I activate Enchanted Quiver. and then I have those arrows until that buff goes away. I think that's how... Okay, so what I used to believe is wrong. I thought it was once you use the enchanted quiver that's when you get the buffed effects. But okay, that's cool. So yeah, if you just want to keep the current arrow that you're on, then you can use that. There are some times when you don't want to do that, like let's say you're fighting a boss that prevents you from using potions or something. Then you want to have drain arrows sometimes, so you don't want to always have the magic arrows. But anyway, moving on. Let's see. So this attack, your final damage will be increased as much as 100% of the enemy's defense while attacking. And then of course, you ignore 50% of the enemy defense. That's nice. Going on to hyper passives, I added into the mobbing skill. I gave it 20% damage. I also gave it one extra line. For Hurricane, I did all 3 skills. I gave it 30% damage, I gave it 10% boss damage, and then also I gave it one extra line, but it reduces the damage to 75% of the original damage. Which, don't worry, it's good. It's actually helpful. Okay, so moving on to the hyper actives. At 150, you get a buff that lasts for 30 seconds and has a cooldown of 90 seconds, but it gives you 50 attack, it gives you 100% knockback resistance, and when attacking a boss, you get 20% damage. At 170, you get like a AoE attack. It attacks, it has a strange hitbox actually. So it's above your head, but it also hits the enemies that are to your sides. It doesn't have a very good hitbox under you. But if I were to go, let's say down here, and use it, it would hit all the enemies up there, kind of the ones next to me. I don't think the enemies were close enough to be hit. But luckily the cooldown of the skill is very short. So it does very nice damage, and also gives the enemies damage over time for the next 10 seconds. Oh wait, let me see. Yes. So it hits 8 times and does damage over time. Cooldown is 15 seconds. But the hitbox is very strange to me. Very strange. And then at 200 you just get a 10% damage buff. And I believe that is it for all of the skills. So I'll just do, well, I guess I don't really have to show the mobbing. I could extend the video with it though. Not that I have to, I don't know. Bowmaster's training, pretty simple. You just use this skill. Oh, and let's say you want to cover a platform. You put down arrow platter. And just go on with your day, just like, you know, don't worry about the left side. Of course, the stationary arrow platter does less damage than the normal one. But it works just fine. Alright, so let's move on to the bossing. So, when bossing as a Bowmaster, I like to join the fight by using the 150 hyper, activate Arrow Blaster the turret, and then make sure I have Magic Arrow and the Enchanted Quiver, so that I don't run out of Magic Arrow. Or I have unlimited Magic Arrow for, you know, I think it was like 30 seconds or something. And that's pretty much how I boss. Of course, Von Leon doesn't move around too much, so I don't really have to hit him with the arrow that slows him down, but I'm doing it just for showing off. And that's how I boss as a Bowmaster. Reactivate the quiver before it runs out, and just keep attacking. However, if I did need drain arrows or poison arrows, of course I would activate that. What I used to do was, I would poison the enemy first, and then use the enchanted quiver on the magic arrows. But maybe a Bowmaster can tell me if that's the right way to do it or not, but that's just how I do it. And of course, if I wanted to avoid any of his attacks, I could have used the hookshot, because it gives you invincibility. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next video. Wait, what? Anyway, goodbye.